Hi, my name is Zena and I'm known as a poet, but I do a lot more than that. I'm a project maker. I'm a facilitator of workshops and masterclasses, and I curate events, and I'm a mentor. So my work encapsulates all of this because I have quite a long history of playing with the arts as a way to kind of like find my voice, shall we say. Have an identity, have a space where I can evolve as a human being and be a happy individual. So I started off doing theatre lighting and stage management. That was what I thought I wanted to go into television. That was what I was training towards, but I thought, let me just do live stuff first, see what's happening on stage, meet some actors and stuff like that. However, I didn't really like stage management, to be honest. I loved doing the lighting and the sound part, just like creating the atmosphere on stage. I really enjoyed that part of my work. And at one point I was doing a placement, theatre placement at the Riverside Studios, when one of the producers there said, look, there's this black writers group that are looking for somebody to do some lighting and sound for them for their very first show. Bearing in mind, this is like 1991. I was 22 at the time. And I had never met a collective of writers who, or collective of young black people who were doing such incredible, really dynamic stuff. So I lit their first show. It was wicked. And then they asked me if I wanted to join the writers group, and I said yes, I'd love to. And then they asked me, do you want to do a show one time? Now, this is bearing in mind that there was no spoken word scene back then. There just wasn't. You either performed in a pub or a bar. It was very dry literature festivals, and if you were invited as a black or brown artist, it felt very tokenistic. So there wasn't really a space I felt that I could express myself. I'd been writing since I was like a really young child. I enjoyed books. My mum gave me books. I'm an only child as well, so I needed something to keep me company and keep my very, very fertile and super hyperactive imagination. Needed something to keep it occupied, so I wrote a lot. But this was an opportunity to do it with people. So I was going to their writing sessions, and they said, "You want to perform?" At one of these cultural events. It was a Kwanzaa event, or there was one of those Pan-African, national Pan-African events. This is where black folks could perform their poetry on a regular basis, even though those events weren't regular. And then I got the bug, quite liked it. But I was writing like 2 poems for like 2 years. And then one day I got invited to perform in Holland, in Amsterdam. This producer came up to me and Phil, and he said, would you like to come out? We'll pay for you to fly there, put you in a hotel, and we will pay you to read your words. And I never knew that was possible. And once I did that, I was very, very curious about this poetry thing. So aside from doing that, I was also doing a little bit of music. I was enjoying singing as well, just going to open mic nights and enjoying my voice. So I was kind of looking at how I could, as I was attending a lot more spoken word nights, there were a few of them that were out there. Most of them were in South London actually at the time. You had the Bug Bar, Souls of Black Folks, but I was kind of fusing singing and poetry together to see if it could work. It was a struggle, but it did kind of work. But it wasn't very well accepted, I found, in the more traditional scenes, traditional poetry scenes. Like I was told I wasn't a real poet because I sang. One of the opportunities that came my way, because I was singing with this girl group, there was like 5 of us, but 4 of us went to South Africa with this big project called Onewoman. We took 17 people out there to do storytelling, dance, drumming, poetry, facilitating workshops in some of the townships in South Africa, Durban and Johannesburg. And I met my mentor, who's still my mentor now. I mean, he's called Pops, and he really is just like my Pops. Me and Pops, we just gelled, mainly because we met because he really liked the tone of my singing voice, and I was fascinated with his traditional instruments. He was playing the Imbira Zabadzimu, which is a South African thumb piano, but it has a very spiritual connotation. Like culturally, it's used for trance and shamanism, and the kora, the West African harp. So the West African harp that Pops was playing is rooted in the tradition of the griot. Griot, G-R-I-O-T, griot, is like this very central character, central personality in mainly Malian history. We're talking like thousands of years old. They hold all the culture. They are the only ones who would be allowed in the royal court. They know all the history of the bloodline of royalty, all the secrets. You know, they would be used to open ceremonies such as weddings and births, but they also would be diplomats. They opened political discourse where there was disputes between tribes, between countries. You know, the griot was a very important factor, feature even in West African culture. This human being who was the mediator, who was a conflict resolution person, but they were poets, they were singers. They would open ceremony with song and with poetry, with praise poetry. So I was very fascinated by the role of the griot, but I didn't want to wear it, the title, because there was people were sort of throwing this title around, you know, in the early days in the spoken word scene, because it was really cool to be called an urban griot. I wasn't comfortable with that term personally, but I did hold on to the principle of the griot. Working with Pops, we went like, I don't know, we went to so many different countries. We went to Zanzibar, went to so many different parts of South Africa. I went to the Kalahari Desert with him. We were doing some work with the Khoisan Bushmen there. I went to KwaZulu-Natal with him, working with the Xhosa people tribe there as well. We went to all over Europe. I can't even tell you how many countries in Europe. But I was cutting my teeth there as a singer, poet, learning all these different languages as well, like learning Xhosa and my scratchy French. When we went to France, I would have to be communicating between the Ngoko women from the tribe of the Ngoko women and the French. So I was having to like do, it was crazy, but it was so exciting. It was a great time in my life. So while I was doing this work, the spoken word scene was kind of evolving in the UK. So every now and then when I'd come back from my travels, I'd pop in and see what was happening, and I'd read a poem and I would sing in Zulu and play my thumb piano. So I started to be seen as doing something quite different with spoken word. You know, I was finding the breadth and the expansion of my voice and where it could go. And I say not just my singing voice, my writing voice, but also my voice as a human being, as a black woman, you know, from a migrant settler family. I was able to find my identity as an artist and as a human being using my craft. But I don't think I would have been able to do that if I had just stayed in London. I needed to get out of London and tour. As a black woman, I found it quite limiting, quite restrictive. So this was an opportunity for me to fly, basically. So Apples and Snakes asked me if I wanted to create a one-woman show, because they were doing this work. They were asking poets to do much more extended pieces. And I said, yes, I would love to do a one-woman show. Mainly because it was an echo back to my theatre background. And I decided that I had a way of doing this, right? I could either do an extended piece where I stand on stage and just monologue, or I embody character, move around the space, I take on the voices of the characters, and I decided to do that. I was very influenced by hip-hop theatre, actually. There's a guy called Will Powers, Sarah Jones. I was watching a lot of these people in terms of like taking poetry to another level, or poetic writing, you know, rap, rhyme writing into a theatre space. So doing a one-woman show really forced me, if you like, to evolve and grow. I love having that kind of ambition of evolution and growth through my art practice. So Security, my first one-woman show. My next one-person monologue kind of show was Travelling Light. Travelling Light was a movement and spoken word piece. It was really interactive with the audience, and I took it to Canada to the Saraswati Feminist Festival, FemFest. I also took it to South Africa with the British Council. Out of Travelling Light came another project called the Fury Project. At first it began looking at my mother's anger, but then looking at her as a black woman and her anger. Then it became about black women's anger. Then it became about women's anger. Then it became about anger in general. And the Fury Project is probably, I think it's 11 years now, 11 years old. Which means it has an iteration of some sort every single year. Platform London is an organisation who, a climate and environmental justice organisation that took Shell Oil to court and won for being in cahoots with the Nigerian government for the murder of Ken Saro-Wiwa and the Ogoni Nine. And because of the destructive, extractivist, colonial, profit-driven, devastating work, drilling for oil that they're doing in the Niger Delta. And this was at a point, they invited me to do a performance for them at a point in my life where I was really looking at ways that I could, I don't know, again, still kind of like expand my artist's ethos. And one of the things that was suggested to me one time, so a mentor at one point, said, you should have a charitable principle. And I was like, okay, what's a charitable principle? And a charitable principle basically is where there's this one cause, this one thing that you give your time and your energy to, your craft to, your art to for free. It's almost like paying it forward. So my work became a little bit more, or has become a lot more, about championing the planet, actually, and championing us as a species. To survive. You know, the earth will be fine. It will cough, shake us off and carry on, and we'll be gone. But do we want to survive? Do we want to carry on? Do we want to see the continuation of our species on this planet? And in that, how are we going to thrive? How are we going to form a respectful and reciprocal relationship with the earth and actually enjoy life rather than living in high stress of, you know, productivity and profit and, you know, basically, you know, surrendering your life over to the system. I'm very anti that. If you can make yourself laugh, like you really tickle your own funny bone, not say what you think you should say, because that sort of sounds funny. You know, what tickles your funny bone? That's your unique you. If you can laugh out loud, if you make yourself cry, and not just because, oh my God, I'm touching on some trauma, this is over emotional. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about a real piece of writing that you feel yourself being completely swept away by the emotion of the writing, and you'll know it in your body. So if I was to say anything, it's about feel your writing in your body. It seems like this is a really important question. I get asked this a lot when it comes to doing this, because I think everybody wants to earn. But if you look at the time that we're in right now, you know, it's interchangeable. Everything is changing. We just don't know what's going to settle. But the interesting thing is there is money out there, right? There is money out there to earn as a writer, as a poet. So let's put it like this. I'm going to tell you some figures. So the not the Arts Council, the British Council, I've worked with them. I was on £250 a day doing workshops with them, which was really nice, right? Let's put it like this. If you set how much you would like to earn a year. So say, for example, okay, I want to earn £32,000 a year. It's not a bad number. It's not a bad number. You break that down into how many hours a day that would be, right? You work out how much it would cost in, how much you would earn in a month, in a week, in a month, and you look at your monthly outgoings and incomings. And that's just like good financial literacy, right? And all artists should have financial literacy. You do that, then you start to strategize, how can my art make me make that money? Also, apply for funding. Don't shy away from applying for funding. I tell everybody, apply for funding. Your parents and you have paid your taxes, and that money, your taxes, is sitting up in there waiting to provide culture, because that's what we do. We're cultural producers. So apply for funding, and the Arts Council is a service that distributes that money. It's not like a fund that you're holding your cap out to. Go and get your money. It's there. You pay your taxes. Your parents paid your taxes. You know, there's poor folks who are paying national lottery tickets, because that's where the Arts Council get a lot of their funding as well. So, you know, go and get your money. It's yours. My journey has been so unorthodox. I find it quite hard to answer the question about volunteering or work experience, because for me that's going down a very traditional route of, you know, you go to school, you get your qualifications, you do your work experience, and you get a job at the end of it. That doesn't fly for me. I think your work experience is where you position yourself to learn what you can. I watched hip hop theatre. But there's no hip-hop theatre venue. It's very rare that it's being commissioned or staged anywhere, so I had to watch it online. So I think you're going to have to, from my opinion, take some really unorthodox routes, do a lot of research, watch a lot of stuff, definitely read about a lot of stuff, but a lot of this is going to be about trusting your intuition, meeting the right people, hanging in the right places. Longevity depends on you. It also depends on your ability to adapt and be flexible, staying current. And staying current means, like, what are people talking about? And how am I talking about that thing and beyond? A maximum amount of freedom. I'm free to say yes or no to any gig that I want, and prepared to suffer the consequences or bask in the glory of the choice. Right? I can say no to a gig and potentially lose £250 and say yes to this other gig, which feeds my soul. So my final thought is maybe a little bit woo-woo actually, but you want to live your life as poetically as possible, which means get into your senses, feel the world through your body and translate it into words. That's how you get your authentic voice. We can feel quite overwhelmed right now, and you know, you might be feeling quite overwhelmed right now based on the fact that you're coming out of study and you're not quite sure what the future holds. So enjoy yourself, be a happy human being, and use your writing as a tool and as a safe space.